Cool. Hey, I'm Jax. Um, I am a film PhD and I've been doing reaction videos to Dimension 20's Neverafter. I have so far done a part one. If you watched it, thank you very much. Which was just looking at the introduction to Siobhan's character of Rosamund slash Sleeping Beauty. I'm about to continue with the episode. I had some feedback about some audio issues. I've tried to fix those, and hopefully you enjoy it. Again, um, I'm just gonna be looking at the cinematics of the episode, largely how it's edited, how people are framed, and how that relates to the storytelling and the narrative that's being collaboratively shown here. And I hope you enjoy. Thanks so much. So we have a fade back to um, this purple as we come out of Siobhan's character. Really nice. So there's a really beautiful music theme that starts on the word memory, actually.
With your memory of arriving here, and
It's very haunting. It's nice. Very well done. So I think Brennan. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is Brennan describing Murph's character, and yeah, it's such a great setup. He's describing it as a monster, and it's so creepy. So this moment between Siobhan and Murph, when Sleeping Beauty approaches Gerard, and she pulls the blanket back to see this eye and freaks him out, and she's freaked out, and it's going back and forth between Siobhan and Murph. I think that exact back and forth between the two of them is one of the strongest arguments you could make in a few seconds to why the edited actual play works so well. Um, it it just really supports the role play that they're doing. It's really nice. It's cutting between these single shots of them rather than staying in these wides. And it's really emphasizing the moment. It's really, really nice. It's the kind of reason that I really love Dimension 20 specifically. And their approach to it and doing this editing of the actual play. It really makes it engaging. It's very classic comedy editing. It's so good. There's a film I really love about a boy, and in the director's commentary, the directors say that comedy is in reaction shots, and I think that's really, I really, I took that as a young kid, and I've carried it with me forever, and it's so true. And this interplay showcases it beautifully. So they're continuing to go back and forth. And at one point, it just cuts over to Brennan laughing.
Bad times.
It's a bad time.
Bad times. Well,
That's almost funnier than what's happening. Yeah, comedies and reaction shots. Man of a thousand voices. It's like Peter Sellers level ability there. We have another color change for Gerard. Rightly so green. Makes sense. But it's really subtle. It just happens behind them. It's super cool. So it goes from the purple, which is clearly the group color, to green. That Brennan says, "Give me a medicine check," and there's something so menacing about it.
everything's in order.
give me a medicine check.
Another example of comedy being in reaction. Lou reacting to Brennan's description, and again, it's just really because the editors chose to emphasize that, it makes it worse almost. Like we are reacting with Lou. So it is like creepy what's being described, this sort of man turning into a frog slowly. It's very body horror. It's very Cronenberg-esque, like The Fly kind of thing. But it is so supported by these choices. The art in the season, beautiful. Really fantastic. This season does this a lot. This is the first real sense of it. Brennan talking to himself as different NPCs. And it does that sort of like Gollum in Lord of the Rings versus Smeagol kind of back and forth cutting between, and it's putting Brennan on different sides of the frame, so we know it's a different character, and it's really effective and creepy. They also add in little blips of static on the cuts, which kind of gives the sense, like, it just sort of gives the sense that you're going insane. And it's interesting because it's sort of playing with this thing. Like, this is a inherently funny thing that's happening. Brennan's talking to himself as different people. And it could be very silly. And I think perhaps if they'd left it on a single, on like this wide single, or they didn't emphasize like the differences in the characters, it might be laughable. But by choosing to really emphasize the differences, like, you know, again, placing Brendan on opposite sides of the frame, adding these little noises in, it the music staying is really beautiful. The music support is wonderful. We don't go there. We go to a dark place. This is important. This is serious. And when they cut to Murph, Gerard, he's in the center, right? So it's very interesting choices. We needed to go to Murph's story after Siobhan's, like after the darkness of Sleeping Beauty and that opening. It's so intense, sets the tone perfectly. We had to go to something lighter, especially knowing what comes ahead with like Little Red Riding Hood and Timothy Goose. They were too dark to go to next. It would have been too intense. So it's really smart narrative choices on Brennan's part. You can see the mastery of storytelling there and how an audience needs to breathe. So that's cool. So I didn't notice this on the first watch through, and why would you? Brennan drops huge foreshadowing of battles to come.
You have heard of what now befalls all of the realms. Giants striding in the land, witches, terrible storms, creatures of the sea.
So we'll see all of that throughout the season. So really great. Just dipping in, you know, again, the zoom out. Same zoom out that we have at the end of Siobhan's story, we have at the end of Murph's. So they're using this as a device, which is really great that they've repeated it. We go back into the purple, which is representative of the group, right? So out of the green into the purple. This is one of my favorite intros. We're about to meet Pib and Pinocchio. I love this intro. I love these characters. Brennan's like foppish voice is so funny to me. I find it hilarious. I did like both of them have gone for characters, but Lou is just unhinged this season. It's fantastic. It's the voice. It's the voice. We're about to hear it. The commitment, the absolute commitment that Lou Wilson has to this character is astounding. Like,
Indeed, Lord Bandelbridge. When we reach Schuberg, us three friends, we will treat you as you have treated us.
20 episodes. He did that for 20 episodes. So interesting, there's not really a color change for these guys. That's interesting. They don't really have a color change. I guess it goes like a little more blue, the background. There it goes. Now it's going fully blue. And I think blue is going to be Pib. If I'm remembering correctly, we're going right into Pib. for whatever reason, Brennan describing Pib as having long cat tummy has just lived rent-free in my head since I watched this. So yeah, but yeah, so now the color changed that we're going fully into Pib's story. It's all been very straightforward so far for between the like Pinocchio slash Pib story. It's just been very standard kind of editing approach, wides, singles. Zach always nails the roleplay. It's so good. Back to purple. Zoom out from Pib. I love that they keep using this. I know I said I'm not a huge fan of zoom outs, but I love that they keep using the device to end cap everybody's individual story. Okay, I took a little break, changed my setup around a little bit, and we'll see how it goes. We're back to purple. Brennan's description of this guy saying he wants the lie to be true so badly. Man, that hit, like, I think we've all met people like that, right? That just, they're living that lie. They know they're living that lie. Yeah, sad. So again, we have another bit of foreshadowing. Brennan talking about the strings. Nice foreshadowing. So again, reaction shots. Reaction shots. Zach is also unhinged, just immediately trying to pickpocket this guy. So we don't go into Pinocchio's story, which is interesting. I remember that we get into it later, but it's just interesting that we avoid it at this point. So we're starting to hear this tale of Timothy Goose now, and I really love the choice to sort of play with gender here. It's a great character for Allie. They do fantastic with it. We've usually seen Allie doing much more chaotic characters or silly characters, and to see Allie in the role of a kind of caretaker, they do such a good job. So nice. And then we also, of course, meet Little Red Riding Hood, and I have to give like Emily commits to the role play voice. Like she mostly does it throughout the entire thing, whether she's in character or not. She's got that like sort of stuffed nose thing. Yeah, it's super committed. It's impressive. The music's doing a cool thing. It's going. It's panning left to right. It's uh I don't really watch on headphones, and the effect is really nice. It's cool. This is such a nice thing. So, this character Buffett says,
As long as someone's telling a story, it should be enough to ward off any boggins or boggarts.
that's kind of the point of the whole season, right? Is that the story needs to continue or evil sets in, and it seems like a throwaway line, and it isn't. It has so much weight to it. So nice to have all of these things. You can tell Brennan studied screenwriting, right? It's so nice to have all of these things dropped in. It's really great. So when they mention the uncovered chariot drawn by a ram, it cuts to Lou.
Chariot drawn by a ram.
Uncovered chariot drawn by a ram.
They didn't have to do that. This is how you foreshadow with editing. By focusing on that, it foreshadows that Pinocchio has this relationship with the ram. So it's really subtle things.
My mom says I need to make more age-appropriate friends.
What a way to introduce yourself. So again, when he's describing this NPC, they use this cut in on Brennan to differentiate it. And I think it is probably a little jarring compared to like previous seasons of Dimension 20, but it really works. It really differentiates the NPCs. So Timothy Goose is talking, and we get the really subtle color change. My bet is that Brennan is controlling this, and then that's fantastic. So it's on these normal shots. We've been having very standard editing for a long time, actually, at this point, and it cuts in to a really tight shot of Brennan going and just very suddenly, give me a wisdom saving throw.
Give me a wisdom saving throw.
What?
The intensity of the moment changes in an instant with that cut, with the fact that it is close, with the fact that the music starts to swell up again, and that we're getting a color change. We know by now, right? We know by now that the color change indicates something. For this episode, it's been indicating a dip into the character backgrounds, right? So the fact that it's changing as Timothy Goose is talking means, okay, I think I'm getting ready to see Timothy Goose's story, his background, which is probably what all the players at the table are assuming too. But then Brennan says, give me a wisdom saving throw, and that hasn't happened before. So they're supporting that with this new close-up, with the music, and it throws Allie off. They're like, what's happening? And it throws us as the viewer off a little bit too, but it's meant to. And then really sudden change back from the dome after the gander goes away. It's really interesting because it immediately changes the tone, and we're now really like, it's just it becomes very tense, and it goes back into the sort of gray-green for Timothy Goose, maybe yellow, and we're going back into his backstory now. So you can see, like, clearly Brennan has control over some sound effects in the dome, and I'm going to assume the lighting moves as well, because he mentions thunder, and, like, you can see him go to press it.
You look out and you see that there is, once again, distant thunder.
So again, more foreshadowing. Not even foreshadowing, just it's a hint. There's no way you'll find them all in time. Them is fairy tales, nursery rhymes, but it's not necessarily clear at this point in time in this show. So it's interesting. They use the layered effect again after Mother Goose figures out the nursery rhyme of Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, and Brendan sort of claps his hands forward and, like, makes this big gesture, and they use this layered effect, this dissolve effect, basically, like, layered dissolves over one another, and I'm really interested by why they've used that specifically. I mean, it draws attention to the moment for sure. It's like a very easy visual way to add a little bit of drama visually to that specific moment. But I'm kind of wondering a lot about why layers, why dissolves over one another. It tends to indicate sort of a dreaminess, right? So, like, dissolves as transitions conventionally, they're used to compress time, right? So, like, you dissolve from one shot to another, and it really depends on the situation, but, like, in conventional narrative cinema, you would probably assume that maybe those two shots are separated by time. They're not necessarily one after the other, that maybe some time has passed. Dissolves like this, when they're, like, layered on top of one another, just over top, it kind of makes it seem like multiple things are happening at once, which is, again, the sort of the point of the story, right? These times upon a time. So I think it's a very interesting cinematic choice to use this layered effect. I have to say, like, a 15-foot tall goose is terrifying. Like, geese are scary being 2 feet tall. We're starting to get back into the cinematic stuff again. You see a window open, and as Brennan says that, he goes like this, and it not only does the layer dissolve thing again, but it zooms in. It puts, Very interesting. Very much like a convention of looking, pushing in and looking through, but combined with that dissolve effect. Okay, so Brennan's describing the importance of the book, and there's just a very slow zoom out. It gives it weight, for sure. They start and stop that pull out a little bit. I think it might have been better to hold on it longer. Yep, and again, Mother Goose's storyline, zoom out, and a cross dissolve. So, and here we have a moment where I think the cross dissolve is used to compress time. It looks like they edited a bit out. So yeah, there's a zoom out from Allie as we finish with their story, and it cross dissolves to Brennan, who he's picking up and continuing the narrative. And yeah, that looks to that is a really good example of what I was talking about before, where we're connecting two pieces that may not be one after the other, right? So I really get the sense that they have snipped a bit of time out in there, but it might just be the way that it cuts because of Allie's position on screen and Brennan's position, and the fact that he's moving. Slightly jarring to the eye, which may also be why they decided to cross dissolve it. It kind of can soften some of that. But yeah, I like that they're being really consistent with this zoom out because it's a nice little end cap. It's a visual motif that's being repeated and is consistent for the characters, which is nice. You have to wonder how things would play out with different roles. This amazing push in on Emily. It's really subtle. It's really, really subtle. You might have missed it. You know, right before as she blows the family away. And then the zoom out again. Love it. But it also uses that technique of cropping in on Brennan, putting him over as we hear the voice of the big bad wolf speaking to Red. That whole sequence, so well done, so cinematic. And I love that it's not the last one we see because we haven't seen Pinocchio yet, but it's definitely dark, and we couldn't have gone right into it from some of the other ones. Like we needed some space, and actually having it triggered by the battle, by something dangerous, by something attacking Little Red, is a PTSD response. So of course she's going to have this flashback to this horrific memory that is responsible for that trauma. So that is also just fantastic storytelling, and it shows a really deep understanding of the human psyche and how we cope with and respond to trauma. Really fantastic narrative world building. Really, I think this is like one of the few things they've done for comedy, that the split screen effect of Allie and Emily both saying, "Does it stay?"
Does it stay?
So now we're going into Pinocchio's. So it's not a flashback. We don't get a color change here. Brennan really playing a manipulative character very well. So Pinocchio asks about his dad, and instead of giving a direct answer, the stepmother just says, "Well, when I married him, I told you I'd keep him safe," which isn't an answer to "Is he okay?" So yeah, I think he establishes playing a manipulative character very well. And now we're going into a flashback into Monty, and it goes to, yeah, so we get a color change. It's hard to tell what color. It's very similar yellow to like what Timothy Goose had, but not quite. And then the zoom out again. Fantastic. I love that it's on everyone. I didn't realize the first time I watched through that they did that on everyone. I think I was too sucked into the storytelling, but really interesting thing. They used this effect on Brennan as the stepmother very towards the very end of the episode, that kind of like almost like reality breaking, and then it ends with kind of a Brennan doing like an evil laugh and sort of like echoes of himself going forward and dissolves over the image. And that's episode 1. What a place to end. We have this mystery with Pinocchio. We have some insight into all 6 characters' backstories. And they've established very specific cinematic techniques that they're using for this season that they haven't used in other seasons before, really. This is really, from what I've seen, where they really started exploring using film techniques in the editing. So I'm very interested, as I rewatch this with you all, to see how that progresses and if I like it, if I don't like it. I think some of it's more successful than others. Like I said, at first I wasn't so fond of the zoom outs, but then the fact that it kept end capping these flashbacks and bringing us back into the world of all 6 characters, it actually makes a lot of cinematic sense to use that in that instance, right? And that's kind of the point of any film technique, any technique in anything you do. Regardless of what the quote-unquote rule is, if there's a solid reason for doing something and it makes sense, especially when you're working with a narrative, if it makes narrative sense, if it supports the story, absolutely break those rules, because that's going to support your story with a visual motif, and that's always going to help. But you gotta go into it. You gotta believe it. You can't just do, if they just did it once or twice, it wouldn't be as strong. The fact that they've done it every time and they remained consistent is what makes it really work. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Definitely like and subscribe. I'll be doing more of these through the rest of the episodes of Neverafter. If you're looking for more stuff, you can catch me over on my friend's channel, Better with Bacon, talking about TTRPG gaming. You can follow me at Ranting Cinephile on Threads and Instagram. And yeah, otherwise I'll see you back here with my next video. Thanks so much.